So, when I was looking around for an excuse to use Touhou music in a new video, or I mean, when I was looking around all of the new handheld video games coming out this month, I realized that the new Touhou game was coming out. The very first Touhou game for the Nintendo Switch, but it actually also came to the PS Vita and the PlayStation 4. Before I move on, this is a Nintendo Switch review, but if PS Vita fans are wondering, the PS Vita version of Touhou Kobuto V Burst Battle is compatible with the PlayStation TV, just throwing it out there. But without further ado, here is my Nintendo Switch review of Touhou Kobuto V Burst Battle. The plot of this game takes place in Gensokyo like all other Touhou project games. Reimu, the Shrine Maiden, has been getting fewer and fewer donations all the time, and some rumors have been going around that she has now teamed up with the vampire of the Scarlet Mansion, going out and attacking humans. To be able to regain her reputation and find out the source of these rumors, she heads to the Scarlet Mansion to find out straight from Remilia Scarlet. Now, the story of this game is kind of complex and not complex at the same time. You got 9 different story modes that you unlock as you play the game, all from different perspectives of each of the playable characters, but the base story is the same. And the biggest complexity isn't from the game itself, it's what it is inspired and based on. Touhou Project has mountains of lore to go through, and this game doesn't really tell you any of it. If you remember when I reviewed Touhou Genso Wanderer, it had huge amounts of lore in it. This game just kind of assumes you know it. With gameplay, I'm not really sure how to define this as a genre. Burst Battle is defined by NIS America as a bullet hell battle game, though Nintendo fans will immediately be reminded of the fighting game ARMS, because it plays very similar to that game. I would say this is a fighting game at its core, with a little bullet hell thrown in because, as you can see here in gameplay, most of the attacks are projectile bullets. So instead of labeling it as a genre, imagine ARMS with projectiles, and that's kind of what we got here. Now, when you first start up the game, you got all of your game modes ready for you. You got story mode, arcade mode, and score attack for just gameplay. And then you got the versus mode, so you can fight AI to train, use local split screen to play with a friend in the room, or go online to fight other people around the globe. The main sense of length and unlocking in the game is story mode. You have 9 different playable characters, and you have 9 different story modes to go through, but you don't get them right away. When you first start the game, you have to beat the main story mode with Reimu, and then with Marissa, and then with Remilia Scarlet. Once all 3 of those story modes are cleared, you get a character select so you can play through as anyone you want. And let's talk about combat, because that is the biggest point of this game. When you go into battle, you have a perspective very similar to ARMS, where the camera is right behind your character and you're looking towards your opponent. You're basically locked onto them the entire time. You can obviously jump, move around to the sides to dodge, but you're kind of focused on them with all of your attacks. Now, the main difference here between ARMS and Burst Battle is the variety of your attacks. You've got 3 attacks: a main attack, a charge attack, and a sub attack, but they do different things based on, are you on the ground or are you in the air? Are you up close to your enemy or are you far away from your enemy? And are you holding down the R trigger while you use the attack? There are a lot of different attacks here. Yes, you only have 3 attack buttons, but on that you have over a dozen different attacks you can actually do. Now, I really only have 2 problems with the combat itself. First of all, like ARMS, the combat feels very sluggish. You move very slowly. It is very precise on your movements for dodging incoming attacks. Now, if you like ARMS and you like the slow combat, this is not going to bother you. It bothers me, but that's also the reason I did not really like ARMS. The bigger problem, though, is the balancing. This is a fighting game, and this is a horribly balanced fighting game. You've got characters like Marissa that can use an X attack that looks kind of like a Kamehameha wave, and it will take roughly 1/3 to over half of an enemy's health gauge with one hit. Then you got characters like Cyrano who have to hit with several different attacks to do remotely the same amount of damage. And that's not even getting into ultimate attacks. Marissa's ultimate attack can pretty much one-hit KO half the roster. Really, really bad balancing. Now, let's talk about length. Touhou is not an expensive game. Rather than the default $59.99 for this gen, all three versions of the game, PS4, PS Vita, and Nintendo Switch, cost $30. So how long is the game? How much longevity is it? The only real sense of unlocking is through the story modes. Now you got 9 playable characters. I am not counting the 10th DLC character because that DLC is not released yet. And each story run has some story scenes and about 5 battles. That should take you around 15 to 30 minutes apiece. I would say on average 20. It really depends on who you're using. Marissa obviously flies through the story campaign, while Cyrano goes at it much slower. But given the 9 different characters and that average, you can probably clear all story campaigns in around 3 hours. Now that's not very long. Even though the game is only $30, that's not very long. 3 hours to pretty much unlock everything, and at that point you don't have anything left to do but work on high scores in arcade mode and score attack, or go into multiplayer. Now let's talk about controls for a second, and because I'm talking about controls, you already know there's something wrong with the controls. Now the control scheme, I don't have a problem with it. It's very simple, it's very easy to understand. The problem is how you learn how to use the controls. There's no tutorial in the game. The only way you would ever know, outside of just mashing buttons when you're in combat, is a manual option on the main menu, completely on the other side of the screen, away from all of the other main menu options. I didn't even know it was there until I'd been playing the game for well over an hour. It's just a matter of, why wasn't there a tutorial in story mode to show you the basics rather than just having a manual that you have to go manually read. Now let's talk about presentation, which is by far the game's best asset. Visually, everything looks flawless. There are no jagged edges, there's no blurring, there's no pixelation. All of the character models look flawless, all of the environments and animations look flawless. It's really well done. And really, the performance is the same. Loading sequences are short, and the frame rate pretty much stays at a perfect 60 FPS throughout the entire thing. Now, let's talk about battery life, or more specifically, how good NIS America is at optimizing games for the Nintendo Switch. This is a 3D game, so you would think that it wouldn't have very good battery life. You would think wrong. Here are my battery times from 100% to 0%. With maximum brightness in the Wi-Fi on, 3 hours and 58 minutes. With maximum brightness in the Wi-Fi off, 4 hours and 26 minutes. Lowest brightness with the Wi-Fi on, 5 hours and 5 minutes. And lowest brightness with the Wi-Fi off, 5 hours and 11 minutes. So no matter what your settings are, you're going to get at least 4 hours of battery life out of this game. And for a 3D game, that's pretty darn good. Now, in conclusion, Burst Battle is an interesting and fun Touhou take on the ARMS combat formula. Even as someone who didn't like ARMS, I found Burst Battle to be as entertaining as it is adorable, despite the fact that it is held back by some balancing issues and a need to know the lore of the Touhou project. Reviews to Go rates Touhou Kobuto V Burst Battle a 7 out of 10. Now let's break down the score. The fact that you need to know the lore for the story, minus 0.5 points. The balancing issues between characters, minus 1 point. The short length, minus 1 point. And the control explanation or lack thereof, minus 0.5 points. If you have any more questions or comments, feel free to leave them below or head to the website at www.reviewstogo.com.